Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Anything Can Happen Friday here on the Matthew Schreiner podcast. It's Friday as you're listening to this, and in today's episode, now I don't know if this is actually going to make it to being a full episode. I don't intend to make it a full episode, but things will change by Monday, and I'll decide, okay, I want to actually do a full video on it. But, anyways, there has been some talk online about Cardinal Cupich here of the Archdiocese of Chicago. That's actually a diocese nearby me. I'm not a part of the Archdiocese of Chicago, but I am near it and certainly have a lot of friends and family who are in the Archdiocese of Chicago. So I just wanted to mention these recent goings on, and that is about an award that he is giving here to a prominent senator here in the state of Illinois. I believe he's a senator in the U.S. Senate. Um, More on that in a minute. I have someone who lives in the archdiocese, and the nickname that he gives to Cardinal Cupich is Cardinal Stupich. Now, I am not saying that's what I call him, but I am saying that I do know people who this is the nickname that he is given within his own diocese. And I'm not condoning it, nor am I saying this is what I personally call him. Rather, I'm just saying this is what people within his very own diocese think of him. Cardinal Cupich is also. I apologize if I say that name by accident a couple of times. So, but regardless, I have. But he is. Again, I live near the Archdiocese of Chicago. I know people who have who. I wouldn't say I know people who have met him, but actually that is partially true. But he was here within my diocese for an ordination. I have a photo that I took of him here at our cathedral for the ordination. It was an Episcopal ordination, an Episcopal consecration, and so I have a photo of him here at our diocesan cathedral. Anyways, on to this. When talking about Cupich, recently he was in the news before, especially amongst traditionals, for an article that he did on the liturgy, and this was published by Brian Holdsworth. He talked a little bit about this in one of his videos, and I have not read Cardinal Cupich's full letter. I started reading it. I read like the first two paragraphs of it, and then I kind of skimmed through. But I knew just off the bat, and then I read some of the other things that people were saying, and then Brian Holdsworth, of course, did a video on his writing, so you can check out Brian's video there, which he talks about this letter from Cardinal Cupich. But that brings me to another point of a book that my grandmother, after she passed away and we were going through her things, I found this book in her closet, and it's about prominent Catholics. It's a book about prominent Catholics speaking about how best to be Catholic, how to be Catholic in a modern age. And two of the most interesting voices within that book was the now disgraced Cardinal McCarrick and Nancy Pelosi. Then those are two voices in that book that wrote. So it's a rather interesting book. And of course, Nancy Pelosi had her own kind of, I'm not going to say falling out, but she had something that went on within her diocese with the Archbishop in the Diocese of San Francisco with Archbishop Cordileone, which she was said, you can't receive communion within the diocese, and that was a whole big thing that happened, and that was in the news a while back. Um, with that brings me to Cardinal Cupich's award to the Democratic Senator of Illinois, Dick Durbin. In fact, I wrote notes for this video. I very rarely script my Anything Can Happen Friday videos, but I actually did script this one, so I scribbled out some notes, and I circled this because this is the big point. Cardinal Cupich's award to Democratic Senator, I believe that, I wrote a D, to D, Illinois Senator. Oh, no, wait, that's an I, not a D. I really can't read my handwriting. That I made look like a D. To Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, and he is a Democratic senator. And he is known for his prominent position, being a Democrat, for his prominent position of abortion. In fact, I saw a post this morning, or this afternoon, from Dick Durbin where he said, abortion is a fundamental right. Retweet if you believe this. Is this the kind of thing that Catholics believe? No, it's not. It's completely opposed to Catholic belief, and in fact, it is completely against what I'd say is common sense. Abortion is not a right, or health, and it's not healthcare. It's not a right. It's not a fundamental right. What are the fundamental rights? Well, what does our Constitution say? The fundamental rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if you want to go on that road, abortion deprives the living child, because that is a child, that is a living being, it is a new human being, from the second of conception. Also, I am like on the race against the clock because my laptop is going to die at some point. So I just got to run through this and finish it before my laptop dies. Regardless, it deprives that child of the ability of the ability of life and the ability to pursue happiness and liberty. That child has no liberty. Its liberty is taken away. Now, granted, there is a certain means in which a child has no liberty. A child does not have liberty. Its parents have liberty. The child does not. But my point being, it is still a fundamental right of human beings for life and to pursue happiness. We are depriving this child of life in order that the mother can pursue her own happiness, and that she can also pursue what she perceives as being liberty. That's just an argument of abortion that I kind of just thought of here. And anyway, so this award, Durbin, with his prominent belief of abortion, that post I mentioned before, Cardinal Cupich was not just receiving backlash from like 5 online traditionals who are all ticked off that he's giving an award to a liberal senator. No, he received backlash from a couple of bishops. The first bishop was Bishop Paprocki of the Diocese of Springfield in Illinois. That is a diocese near the Diocese of Springfield, or near the Diocese of Chicago. And Bishop Paprocki is also from Chicago. He went to the major seminary up in Chicago, of which Cardinal Cupich is the chancellor of, and it's a great institution up here in the Archdiocese. Regardless, he received backlash from Bishop Paprocki of the Diocese of Springfield here in Illinois. He received backlash from Archbishop Cordileone, who I mentioned before, who told Nancy Pelosi, "Hey, you can't get communion anymore," and so Bishop Paprocki also has a history of telling senators, "Hey, don't take communion," because obviously Bishop Paprocki is the senator of the is not the senator, is the bishop of the capital of Illinois. He's also one of the biggest dioceses in area in Illinois. The biggest diocese in population is probably the Archdiocese of Chicago, being it is the Archdiocese, being it has the city of Chicago. But in terms of size, it's either the Diocese of Bellevue or Springfield. It's one of those two that has to be the largest in Illinois. There are 5 dioceses in Illinois: Chicago, Joliet, Rockford, Bellevue, Peoria, and Springfield. So there are 6. 5 dioceses, 1 archdiocese. And the largest of those is either Springfield or Bellevue in terms of area. Because Illinois is a relatively, first off, conservative state. It is a very conservative state, with the exception of the larger cities, mostly Chicago, who are big Democratic strongholds, or Democrat strongholds because of politics. But the rest of Illinois is smaller farmland, even out here where I am, which is a bigger area, but it is still mostly farmland. We aren't a big city like Chicago. So we are mostly farmland out here. I look to my left, there's farmland. I look to my right, there's farmland. I drive anywhere here, there's farmland. I go up a little bit, I am in farmland. I can drive a street that's almost a dirt road up here. My point being, Springfield, the diocese in which Paprocki is very much farmland. It is a huge diocese in terms of area, but it's mostly farmland. It's a very unpopulated area. If you drive down to Springfield from where I am, closer to Chicago than to Springfield, most of the drive down there is farmland. you go and there's this giant wind farm that you have to drive through. I think there's an airport on the way too. My point being, mostly, um, actually there is no point, but my point was more that Propaki is a bishop in an area where there's a lot of politicians, and so he's the one who will say to a lot of politicians, you can look at his Wikipedia article, I believe it's on there, that he says, hey, don't get, stop getting communion, and I believe Bishop Propaki is the bishop of Senator Dick Durbin, because Durbin is from that area. I'm not quite sure on that, but I've seen some people report that. Archbishop Cordileone is most known for that Pelosi deal in which he told her, "Hey, no more communion for you." So both of them have before said to bishops, or not to bishops, the bishops have said to lay people, especially lay politicians who advocate for abortion, "Hey, no communion for you." And I don't mean to put it that way. I know that but that, I think you understand what I'm trying to say by saying that. I'm being rather crude with the language, I think, but you understand what I mean by that. And at least two other bishops, one article said 4 bishops, so I know 2 of those, but at least 2 other bishops have made comments about this, made official comments, mostly on Twitter, about this, and others have made similar comments. But a lot of people are united here to say, Cupich, you're doing something completely silly. And so we can only hope and pray that Cupich might have a change of heart at this, because we can't have this. We can't have a Catholic institution applauding someone for what Cupich says is for their stance on immigration. That is why Cupich is giving him this, like, Heritage Award or something like that. What he's saying is, hey, what he's telling Cupich, or Cupich is telling Dick Durbin, you're doing great, you're doing wonderful. And I've seen some other things talking about money, how Durbin gave some good money to Cupich and to the Archdiocese. Do I believe that happened? I don't not believe that happened. Do I believe it's the reason he's getting the award? Maybe. But maybe Cupich, within his heart, does believe, hey, I am actually awarding this guy for the wonderful things he's done for immigration. But in the end, we have to look at this and say, okay, well, is he wonderful on the immigration, but is he completely opposed to what Catholics believe about, say, abortion? Because he is. I saw one example that was given by a priest on Twitter, and he said, if we had a senator who has a wonderful stance on abortion, thinks we should, abortion should be illegal in all 52 states. I'm over exaggerating, all 52 states. It should be illegal, right? Well, then, what if, on the other hand, he is just completely for having armed patrolmen at the border, and anyone who attempts to cross the border, anyone who looks at the border funny, they just shoot. Shoot on sight. Shoot without question. Should that guy still get an award? And the answer for him was no. Someone who has a great view on abortion but has terrible views on other things politically shouldn't be given a Catholic award. And that's the same for someone like Senator Durbin. He might have, in the eyes of Cupich, and I don't fully know the truth, but in the eyes of Cupich, he has this great view on immigration, but then he has these completely terrible anti-Catholic views on abortion, and Durbin is Catholic, by the way. That's something I should mention. Durbin is Catholic, like Pelosi, like Joe Biden. He's a Catholic in name. It helps him in the political cycle, but when it comes to what he supports as a politician, it's very anti-Catholic. There are a lot of people who will put this, and you can check out Trent Horn. He's done videos on this. Well, it's my beliefs. I should enforce my beliefs on someone. Right, but Father Mike put this great. I'm not a big Father Mike watcher, but I did see this one video because someone played it. And he was talking about how there's an objective reality, and we have to understand what is real. There is a reality. There is truth. There is, so we have to understand that there is a right way. And if you are a Catholic, by being a Catholic, there are certain things that you have to believe. You might not understand it at first, but the church holds to these opinions Not because, oh, we want to be oppressive to women. Oh, we want to, that's a silly reason. But ultimately, it's not Catholic Church just says this to be the Catholic Church. No, there's a reason we believe this. Every single church until the 1930s agreed with the Catholic Church on things like gay marriage, contraception, things like this, and abortion. Everyone agreed. Every Christian denomination agreed with the Catholics until the 30s, until the 60s, until the sexual revolution. Everyone agreed with the Catholic, and then the 90s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, when all these things became societally normal, and all these Christians said, okay, yeah, it's fine, we can do this. That is a big reason why Scott Hahn eventually converted, and that is a big thing that he talks about in his book, is contraception. His wife was doing a research on contraception, and she's like, oh, well, it's just a Catholic issue. And then they realized, no, everyone agreed with the Catholic Church until the 30s, until the 60s, until the sexual revolution. So my point being, if we are Catholic and we want to consider ourselves to be Catholic, there are certain views that we have to hold to. If you want to consider yourself Catholic, if you want to say, I'm a Catholic, I love my faith, then you have to believe in your faith. And you can't just use it as a political means. You can't just say, oh, I'm Catholic, to try and garner Catholic support or whatever. A lot of people will say you can't be Catholic and a Democrat. I am not going to be as bold as to say you can't be Catholic and a Democrat, because our faith should dictate how we vote, but I can't say that one party is necessarily better for our Catholic belief than another. But certainly I can say, when we've got someone like Senator Durbin, whose platform is about abortion, no, we shouldn't be voting for someone. And that is not my opinion. I'm not just voicing my opinion. I'm saying that as Catholics, we can't vote for someone whose platform, who posts on social media, retweet if you agree. You can't be Catholic and say something like, retweet if you agree that abortion is the greatest, that it's a fundamental right for people. You can't be Catholic and say abortion is a fundamental right. You can't. You simply can't. Can you be Catholic and a Democrat? Maybe. Can you? I don't see why not. I don't see how voting necessarily has to do it. But what you stand for, if you are voting for someone because you believe in abortion, or what have you, no. You shouldn't vote for someone who stands on a platform of saying abortion is great, abortion is wonderful. I'm not going to say you can't vote for a Democrat. There are many reasons why someone might vote for a Democrat besides abortion. And there are many reasons why someone wouldn't vote for a Republican. And it's not that if there's not Republicans who are also for abortion. Now, there are some who are directly opposed to abortion on the right. But that is not to say that one side is necessarily more Catholic than the other. That would be silly to say that, oh, well, Catholics should only vote Republican, or Catholics should only vote Democrat. That's not what I'm saying. It is between, it is, as many people will say, it's the lesser of two evils. Which side is better? Which side stands more for our Catholic belief? And that is to be decided by each individual person. Again, this isn't about character. I am not talking about moral character of a politician. Rather, I am talking about the political standpoint of a politician. What do they stand for? Do they stand for abortion and say it's a fundamental right, that every woman should have the right to for lack of a better word, murder a child? No. This isn't about, oh, well, Senator Durbin's a terrible person who, I don't know. It's not bringing against charges of adultery or something. No, this is about the politics, and also about, this guy claims to be Catholic, and now he's getting accolades from a Catholic prelate. Not just a tiny Catholic prelate from a little church in the middle of nowhere in Springfield. It's not like he's getting an award from some bishop. It's, a bishop. Regardless, he still stands in a place of he's a leader of the church. But this is a cardinal. This is a guy who runs a prominent diocese, a big diocese in a big city. And he's giving an award to someone who stands against Catholic belief. A Catholic who stands against Catholic belief. A Catholic who has no problem siding against Catholic belief, the very Catholic belief he claims to hold to. And I know I talked about that a lot towards the end, but anyways, that's it for today. Rather long episode. I wasn't expecting to ramble on that long about it, but, well, I did. Anyways, that is it for today. I don't think there's going to be a video on this on Monday. I think I explained this way too much, but maybe there will be, like, a special video edition of this that goes up, but if I'm desperate for a video, maybe this one will go up. But anyways, that's it for today, and I will see you next time. God bless. If you enjoyed watching this video, you can find more like it exclusively on Spotify. Every Friday, we release Anything Can Happen Friday episodes alongside regular episodes released on Monday and Thursday. If you'd like to check it out, you can check it out on Spotify on the Matthew Shiner podcast. God bless.